From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 572 for July 14th, 2025. This episode is brought to you by Fitbod, ExpressVPN, and Factor. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. It's good to be here. Good to see you.
You're recording in an undisclosed location, right?
Yes, I'm at a friend's house in the great Midwest.
Summer of fun, Jason. Summer of fun.
Of fun, indeed.
I have a Snell Talk question for you. It comes from Jack, who wants to know, as someone in the half of the world that's currently experiencing the winter of fun, I would like to ask whether Jason has lived in a house with a fireplace.
You know, some of these Snell Talk questions I could never have predicted.
No.
Yes, we had a big old fireplace where I grew up, out in the middle of nowhere in an old house. We had a big old fireplace and with a hearth and we had that. And then when I was a little kid, I still have a scar right between my eyes from where I bashed my head against a fireplace hearth when I was 2 years old. Or 1 year old, something like that. So, I have absolutely mostly. I mean, there are a lot of places that have fireplaces. Our house had a fireplace. And then we took it out because we wanted the room.
Who needs it?
And in fact, my garage where I usually do the podcast, a lot of that space behind me was taken up by the back side of the fireplace. So we took it out and we got a whole wall we could put furniture on in the living room. And it turns out we got way more space for my office in the garage. So, fireplaces are fun, and we never used it, and it's unnecessary, and we took it out. So, have you ever had a fireplace house?
Yeah. We had a fireplace that was kind of filled in when I was a kid, and that someone put an electric fire in front of it when we moved in, but they didn't close off the chimney, and a pigeon got in there once.
Oh no.
That was really bad. But we don't need to get into that story.
No.
I mostly wanted to include this question because I feel like it's obligatory every year to reference the fact that we erased the Southern Hemisphere during the summer.
We're not in the Southern Hemisphere. If both of us, if I was in Australia and you were in New Zealand, we would do the Summer of Fun the other part of the year. But we're not. We're not.
No. Or if, like, one of us was in the Southern Hemisphere, we probably wouldn't do the Summer of Fun at all.
Probably not.
We both experienced summer at the same time, which I think at the moment our summers, heat-wise, very similar. We're roasting over here, Jason Snell.
Oh, are you?
About that.
Oh, yeah. We've had
it's been bad last few weeks.
We've had we're talking about weather now, which is dangerous, but we've actually had a very foggy period in California.
Yeah.
But right now I'm in the Midwest where it's humid and warm, and it's kind of nice to experience a real summer.
You'll have to see it. If you'd like to send in a Snell Talk question of your own to help us open a future episode of the show, I do request, summary questions during the Summer of Fun would be lovely. Please
or wintry questions, I guess. Jack.
Or wintry questions. Yeah,
sure.
Good point. Seasonal. We'll call it seasonal questions. Go to if it's winter for you, would be kind of a fun summer, wouldn't it be? Like, oh, how weird, summer is cold. That's pretty fun. Just go to upgradefeedback.com and you can send in your question. Thank you to Jack for doing that. A couple of items of follow-up. Okay. The A18 MacBook rumor has energized the Upgradians. They won't stop talking about it, which is great. I actually do think it's intellectually an interesting thing to think about, and also just an interesting product. But
even though most of them will never buy it and are not interested in it in any way.
But that doesn't matter, right? Sometimes these things are just fun. But we got an anonymous person who wrote in and said, regarding the A18 Pro to go in a MacBook, no product that Apple sells seems to currently use binned A18 Pro chips. And if the rumors that Apple only pays suppliers for fully functioning chips, TSMC would be motivated to offer Apple a stack of cheap binned A18 Pros. Now, I will say, I haven't done any research on this claim. Maybe there are binned A18 Pros in something. But if this is the case, I just thought that was an interesting idea.
Didn't we think the A18 might be a binned A18 Pro? I thought we thought that.
Maybe, but we don't know, right? Where I feel like that would be less clear, where usually we can see Apple show us the clarity of that, right?
Here's what I would say about this. I don't think this makes sense because the last thing you want in a Mac is an even slower chip than the one that's in the iPhone. I don't think that's the way this is going to go.
Okay, good call. What if graphics?
I think the Mac needs what I mean.
Needs it.
I mean, you could take it down because it's obviously faster than the M1, but it's. I don't think that's a game you want to play. Or it's only the single core performance that's above the M1. The rest of them are sort of even with the M1. So degrading below the 18 Pro, I don't think is a game that Apple should play, and I don't think they will. I think the A18 Pro is probably the least you could ever give a Mac at this point.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, Fraser writes in and says, macOS 26 Tahoe Beta 3 now features a mode where Rosetta can be entirely disabled. This could be useful for testing, but also a precursor to a Rosetta-free Mac model.
I mean,
that was interesting.
I guess. I mean, we know that Rosetta is going away in a couple years, right? So, sure, but this is really
testing.
This is really for developers to test their stuff, and yeah, exactly.
This reminds me, I told this story recently, so I probably shouldn't tell it again, but I'm going to. I think I told it on Connected. Years and years ago, like nearly 20 years ago now, when I wanted to be a Mac blogger, before I found the wonders of podcasting, I had a website where I would try and, I'd write my opinions and see if I could try and dig out anything. And there was a time when Apple didn't update the iTunes Music Store on like the Tuesday that they usually do. Yeah. And I surmised that this meant something was going to be released, and they like revised an iPod or something, and it came a couple of days later. This kind of thing reminds me of that kind of thing, where you're like, here is this piece of information that I could tangentially relate to something else, but who could actually tell?
Exactly.
Let's do the Betails, Jason Snell. I think this is a good spot for it in today's episode because we had Beta 3 come out last week, I think, while we were recording.
Yeah.
And the following, however what you'd say, week, has been full of discussion about liquid glass, because in iOS 26, liquid glass has now become, and I'll steal this from _David Smith, frosted glass. They've really taken down the transparency and quite significantly changed the overall look of iOS. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the question is what they're doing, right? Like, are they experimenting, or are they freaking out? I saw somebody who said, "Oh, I guess social media is designing iOS now."
Mark Gurman said that.
Yeah, right. Oh, that was right. It was Mark Gurman. He's like, I guess X and
X
Threads
is the design team, which I did think was a fun headline.
I think it's funny. And I agree with Mark. So, Mark as a pundit, is kind of, sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't, because it's just his opinions, and we can take
that's punditry.
That is punditry.
Right? That's punditry.
It's the best punditry, in fact. So, I would say I like that take, which is I sure hope that Apple didn't have all this time to do this design, and then after a couple of betas, when people complained about some stuff, they just caved and said, "Oh, forget it." Right? Like and this is where we should probably say, and I get to promote your podcast here. I thought last week's episode of Connected, the segment about liquid glass and design, was excellent. It's the best. I texted you during the show when I said that was the best conversation about that topic I've heard, because not only did you discuss the issues, it's complicated, right? Like the design issues of, do you want to push it? You want to listen to criticism, but you also want to stand by your principles, because everything is going to get criticized at some point. You've got to be thinking about the what you want it to be, and take from the criticism what is necessary, but not overreact from it. And then the point that really I loved, because we've talked about this, the scale of Apple sometimes being beyond what we think and impacting every decision they make, that they literally can't make a product and only ship 1,000 of them. They have, every product they make has to have this huge volume, and they have to buy all the parts in volume. And Federico made this point, which is, Apple's so big. Well, I think what happened is Steven said, knowing what he knows, especially about like Widget Smith and all of that, that the install base is huge. And the point was, if even a small percentage of the install base hates something, it's a huge number of people. Mm-hmm. And what Federico said was, is it possible to for Apple to do something adventurous and opinionated in an era where the volume of the install base is so huge that literally anything is going to disaffect millions and millions of users. And and the answer in the past has been yes, they're still willing to do that. But like, this is the question we have to ask about something like making changes to liquid glass. Are you experimenting? And and we've talked a lot about how initial designs push things too far. Well, you could say, well, let's pull it back and see how that works. And then maybe the reaction is, oh, that's too far the other way, and let's tune it in. And if that's the case, that's great. You should be experimenting. It's the beta. However, if this is just them caving because somebody said something mean about liquid glass, when there might be a better thing, then I don't know. Then that's disappointing.
Yeah, that's disappointing is the word I've used in a bunch of places. That like if they cave on this, if this is a situation where they have caved on this, that is very disappointing, and it's wasted. The effort was wasted, the time was wasted. Why even bother doing it? And like, you surely understood that people weren't going to like it. Like, it's not. It's obvious, right, that like there are readability issues. You should know this in your testing. This wasn't like the first time you've seen it. And my hope is, and the expectation is, that they had a plan, and whatever reason it hadn't been fully implemented, who knows. But if they've ended up in this spot where now they pull it back again, it's like, so what was the point of all of it? Like, why go for the glossy look? Why not just go for a more fluid look to the operating system? So I hope that they're kind of playing around, and my expectation is it actually sits and lands somewhere in the middle between what we've seen in like beta 1 and 2 and beta 3, which I think was the realistic expectation anyway. Like, what they shipped in beta 1 and beta 2 couldn't have been the final thing, because like some stuff, not even from like, I know that there's a lot of really good conversations about accessibility and stuff like that, but there are just certain things that no one would be able to read. Like, no one. Like, not just like, oh, if you are sensitive to this or not sensitive to that. No, like, my notifications, you still can't read them, even on beta 3. Like, you can't read notifications if you have anything other than like essentially a solid color wallpaper, right? Like, they're just. So I think they're still playing. I want them to play it, and I want them to land somewhere. I would be really disappointed if they just are like, oh, they're mad on social media, we've got to pull this one back, because I just think that you got to be more sure of yourself than that if you're Apple. You can't. It's not about listening and reacting to feedback. It's like listening and reacting to that kind of feedback would be a problem for me, because it really is like a lot of people who want to be design thought leaders, right? Like sharing their screenshots. Like, it's just like a lot of that. And depending on what social network you're hanging out on, a lot of people are just doing it to rile people. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. But I just want to say, I don't want them to go down the route that they're currently going down, because then I would be disheartened by it a little bit, because it would show that they didn't actually plan this out properly, and that would be really frustrating to me.
Yeah, so a few things going on here. First off, I know if you dislike the design, there's a comment in our Discord about, well, if they're caving but they're wrong, then isn't that right? And the answer is no, that's not right. Because if they've got a design process, then they should feel like they know where they're going, and they should be able to address problems and fix them. And if what happens is they go through this whole process, and then after some mean words on Twitter, they just give up and turn it off, their process is broken. Even if the result is one that you prefer, their process is broken at that point. Because the fact is, every design is going to have its critics, and what you got to do is sift through it and then make changes that are in alignment with what you're trying to do with your design, not just back off because you're afraid that mean people are saying mean things. Especially since, again, literally that will always happen. The best design, the worst design, there will be people out there who will say mean things about it. So you gotta think big picture. You gotta take from it what you will. I'll point out, by the way, everybody is focused on like the frosting on the glass, on the opacity of the glass. But the fact is, they're doing other things in the background. One thing that I think Dan Morin pointed out is they used to do in like the first beta, way back in the first beta, a thing where if you scrolled dark content behind something that had dark text on it in like Safari, it would flip over so that text was light content for context, but it happened late. So you'd start the scroll and nothing would happen. It'd be unreadable. And then as you kept scrolling, then it would turn. And it was this delay and it felt really awkward. And one of the things that they tweaked in the betas is in beta 3, I believe what happens is it's actually based on the speed that you're scrolling. And if you're scrolling something dark past and it's just going to kind of like blow past it, it doesn't try to change it. And if it's slow, it will try to change it. It's actually trying to figure out like, I want to make this change if this is not a transient change. I've also noticed places where it's doing very subtle selective dimming or lightening of content in the background based on the content that's being filtered to increase contrast. Like there's a bunch of stuff going on here beyond just we made the stuff less frosted. So I don't know. I also saw a screenshot the other day of somebody who said, if you look at the WWDC images and then you look at what's implemented right now on like the Mac, like it's not even close. Like they're still not, which is probably an indication that they're still also implementing this design. And what we saw at WWDC was what they want the design to be at its best, and they're still fixing the code to make it be able to do that. So there's a lot going on here. But again, I'll just say, don't think about the result for a minute. If you've got a design team that's been putting together a design for a long time, and then and also, by the way, betas are not instant turnaround. Betas take weeks to turn around. So when you see a new beta, that beta actually came out 2 or 3 weeks, or was built 2 weeks before. I don't know, a period of time before, and then they get criticism for their design, and then the next time out, they've just pulled the plug on large portions of it. How broken is that organization if that's the case? So I sure hope that's not the case. I actually doubt that it is. I think that this is a much more complex issue. I also wonder if they're worried a little bit about getting it right or righter for the public beta, because there's some level of kind of management that you can go wild with this stuff on the developer betas, but maybe there's a little fear that if it's too extreme at the public beta stage, then they're opening themselves up to another wave of criticism.
Yeah, they may be pulling it all the way back and then staging it back in again for that period of time, maybe. I would love to know how many people install the public beta compared to the developer beta. I would love to know the answer to that.
Right.
We'll never find it out. If anyone ever has that information and wants to share it with me, I would love to know it, because I just think that would tell a lot. But yeah. This episode is brought to you by Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness level, getting started, it can feel like an uphill battle. That's why I'm pleased to let you know that Fitbod is there to help you in an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan that is made for you, because everybody has their own path to personal fitness. That's why Fitbod uses data to make sure they customize things to suit you perfectly. Fitbod will adapt with you as you're improving, making sure that every workout remains challenging, pushing you to make the progress that you want and keeping you engaged. Fitbod know that superior results are achieved when a workout program is tailored to suit you exactly. Fitbod stores the information it learns about you in your Fitbod gym profile. It will track your muscle recovery so you avoid burnout, keep up your momentum, and Fitbod will also adjust your workout. So it tracks your fatigue, it tracks your recovery, and designs a well-balanced workout routine for you. So it's going to be mixing up your workouts with new exercises, rep schemes, supersets, and circuits. This means you won't get bored, but it also means that your body is going to be working in the right way. You're not going to be overworking some muscles or underworking others. The Fitbod app is easy to use. They have great demonstration videos that show you how to do certain exercises, so you can learn them very easily. You can stay informed with their progress tracking charts, their weekly reports and sharing cards, and it integrates with your Apple Watch, Wear OS smartwatch, and other apps that you use like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $15.99 a month or $95.99 a year, but you can get 25% off your membership by signing up today at fitbod.me/upgrade. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/upgrade. That is 25% of your membership when you go to fitbod.me/upgrade. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of this show and Relay. Rumor Roundup time. According to... Thank you. According to Peter Kafka at Business Insider, Apple is in pole position to get the U.S. rights to Formula One, to the actual sport, not the movie. All right, here's your context. Because I feel like we're saying F1 a lot, and it means the movie, but actually we're talking about the sport. Only Apple and ESPN are bidding for the rights from the 2026 season, so for next year. ESPN is the current rights holder, and I think has been paying in the region of like 80 to 90 million a year or something for F1. Apple is offering 150 million, and ESPN have said that they will not be increasing their bid to match Apple's. So now Liberty Media, which is the company that owns Formula One, has to decide whether they want the money or the exposure and, dare I say, legitimacy that ESPN provides for the sport.
That's right.
These rights would be US only. F1 sells their rights in individual packages all over the world. So here's an interesting wrinkle for you, for people that want a bit of context. This is the part that's most interesting to me. So Sky TV, which is owned by Comcast, I'm going to say now, but they were an independent. Yeah. It's essentially what you would consider cable here, but it's actually satellite TV. But just think of it as cable. They have the rights in the UK to Formula One and other territories that they operate in all the way out until 2030. Now, that is interesting for a few things. Obviously, Europe is the market that you are going to see, I think, the biggest viewership of Formula One. So they are where the best rights are. But Sky, the Sky broadcaster in the UK, provide the broadcast stream worldwide, including commentary and analysis. So if you watch on ESPN, you get Sky advertising their services. This is like a weird quirk of F1. So like Sky has an app and they have interactive services, right? So when you're watching, you can press a button on your Sky remote and you can watch driver positions from different, like you can go in and be like, oh, I want to watch Lewis Hamilton's like actual in-car. You can watch that. It's all on like the Sky interface. If you're watching on ESPN in America, you hear this promotion. It's a weird quirk of F1 that is like a joke in the F1 community outside of America, because they say like press the right button now on your Sky Q remote, as Zoe has put in the Discord. This is it's like a meme. Like I can do it, but if you're not in the UK, you can't do this. So it will be really interesting to me to see what Apple does here. Like, are they going to take the Sky feed and just show it, or are they going to build their own infrastructure around it? Now, there's another quirk here. It's good I'm here, Jason. You're not going to get this on any other Apple podcast. Maybe.
All right. This is what Supreme F1 drill down here.
Sky do the commentary and analysis of the races, like so the commentary when they're going on. But the actual video feed is provided by F1. So F1 have their own team that provide the video to Sky. Sky comment on it and provide that out, right?
Yes.
So Apple could take the feed from F1. They don't need to build their own broadcasting infrastructure like they did with MLS.
Right.
And they actually can't because F1 control that.
Yeah. No,
I don't know why, but they do.
This is actually exactly like, I think, World Cup and the Olympics, where there is a pooled broadcast center that is producing. So if you watch the World Cup,
yep,
you see the graphics of the World Cup, or the Olympics. You see their graphics, and there are different feeds where you can take the graphics and you can not take the graphics. You get the audio, and then depending on your level of interest in customizing, you can show your announcers.
Mm-hmm.
But the bulk of it is done by an international pooled. It's the international broadcast.
Yeah,
and F1 apparently is like this too. So they have that because they have because what you're describing is ESPN has chosen its investment in Sky or in F1 is limited. They just take the Sky feed because that's an English language feed.
Yep.
There's a German feed and they're using the same shots of the track, but they are having their own announcers and they use that. And then there's a, and that's so that it makes sense. In a giant international sporting event, they're not going to have a different set of cameras everywhere for every language or for every broadcaster. That's not how it works. So it's a really good question to say, does Apple spend all that money and say, well, we're gonna build our own? I have a hard time imagining they wouldn't say, we will build our own U.S. broadcast out of the international feed and not use the Sky feed because this is Apple. I could see them
really
doing that.
wonder in that scenario how it is taken by the audience. Like, I don't know how the audience at large in America feels about the commentators. What I will say is, in general, everybody outside of Britain doesn't like what is perceived as British bias.
Right.
I will just say that there are the dominant country in F1 for drivers is Britain right now. So it's kind of like it's hard to not,
In America, I would say, because again, Americans are used to their sports being number one in the world. And then there are the sports that aren't. And I will say this. There is an aspect of this. I find it extremely jarring. I mean, the World Cup is different, but like the Premier League, even the NBC commenters for the Premier League are British. And the reason is it would be very jarring. It is very jarring when you hear an American voice doing commentary about a foreign sporting event. And I view F1 that way. I wonder, if you're Apple and you build this, who do you hire? You might hire British announcers. You might hire European announcers of some sort. Fox is the one broadcaster in the U.S. that's like, nope, it's all Americans. And it's like, okay, that's another way to go. But I'm not sure if you think about this as a bit of entertainment. For me, F1, one of the reasons you're into it is kind of that exotic feeling of, it's not, even though there are some races in America, it's not our sport. It's something different. Yeah. So it would be, and also keep in mind, you mentioned the interactive that Sky does. Apple could do that too, right? Apple could take those driver feeds.
Oh, absolutely.
And do their, press your swipe up on your Apple TV remote, or, press a button on your remote to do that.
What are we going to get? Like, instead of quad box, we need 20 boxes.
Yeah.
What would we call that?
So Mike, here though, I'm going to bring it all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Uh-huh.
I think F1 should absolutely not make a deal with Apple.
I agree. It's a terrible idea.
And here's why. First off, you can already buy an F1 subscription in America, right?
It's called F1 TV. So even though ESPN show it, you can go directly over the top of F1. They have their own announcement team, which people like those. You can actually choose the Sky announcers or the F1 TV announcers, and it's a full subscription service. You can watch every race live. They do the whole thing.
So why would you make that available in the U.S. and then also have a second subscription service that made it available? When the whole purpose, other than money, right? Other than money, but I feel like my gut feeling is Apple is a stalking horse to get ESPN to pay more, but that they're going to go with ESPN and that they should go with ESPN, because having the two services doesn't make any sense, because what you want is the visibility of ESPN. They're about to launch their streaming platform. You get coverage on ESPN. Your sport doesn't exist if it isn't on ESPN. This is what I think Major League Baseball is struggling with, is that they're currently walking away from their deal with ESPN next year. And it's going to be really bad for baseball, because what will happen is baseball conversation will disappear from ESPN, because if they don't have their rights, they basically think your sport doesn't exist. And that's not great, but that's just how it is. So I will throw a wrench in here, which is, what if F1 TV got Apple as a partner in some way? What if that became like a partnership where Apple sold F1 TV or Apple co-branded F1 TV. And
or if Apple just got the streaming rights.
Or
they don't get the TV rights, they get the streaming rights.
Or if F1 TV... Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I'm saying on one level, what if Apple took over F1 TV?
Yeah.
And did it that way? Or yes, what if they did? ESPN's going to want the streaming rights too, though. And again, it's duplicative. It's so weird. Like there is F1 TV. So if F1 TV didn't exist, I would be more into the idea that Apple could do this. But if F1 TV exists, then ESPN is the logical option because then you've got your broad reach deal as well as your direct for the hardcore fans deal. I will say this. Apple likes to talk. We know this. Apple likes to shop. A lot of times they do not buy because they're careful with how they spend their money. It's interesting that they're offering so much more than the competition in this case, but that doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, strategically it would be bad. They'd really be doing it because they want a little more money out, and I think it would be harmful to the sport if they did it.
I think. A bunch of things. It's great perspective. Like I think it would surprise me for Apple to pick up rights in just one market, even though it's America.
Also, that so my other theory, which forgive me if I've given this before, but I'll throw it out there again. My other theory is the reason Apple would bid for the U.S. rights to F1 now is eyeing 2030 when other territories become available. Because if Apple can produce an excellent F1 program in the U.S. and is a good partner for F1, which they already are with the movie, and they're a good partner for F1, the next step is to then in 2030 say, we want it all. And if they're not a good partner or they don't like the results or whatever, then they walk away. But I think, honestly, I actually think that Apple doing this is so illogical that if this happens, it's less likely that it's Liberty Media just grabbing the money and more likely that both sides are wondering if this could be a long-term partnership worldwide.
It has to be that because I don't understand why you would do it otherwise. Like, F1 is a growing sport, right? Everybody knows this. So being available to people is helpful, right? And like ESPN in the States is much more available. The other thing about it being a growing sport, it feels like every week F1, the company, like not like the actual company that owns the sport, is announcing a new brand deal. Like, it's obscene right now in the last year. There are so many massive brands that are partnering with F1 now.
Of course.
They surely don't need the extra $70 million that Apple is giving them, right? It's not enough money. So if they do this for the money, that to me is just insane. Like the only reason to do this is that you believe, or Apple has been able to sell you on, these are the ways in which we will be a long-term 20-year partner for you. And over that period of time, we're going to do this and this and this and this to improve the sport. I will say, I think it was in the Puck piece. Like they spoke about, like, you know, Apple putting cameras on the cars for Vision Pro. No, ignore that. Right, we've had a taste of that, and I'll tell you don't want that. It's fun for one lap, but you don't want to sit with Charles Leclerc and go around the track of him. It's too intense. But like there is stuff that they could do together that would be interesting. But to me, it's like I don't understand the money part. There are too many weird ways in which F1 works. And it's only one market. And you remove it from television and you make it harder for everybody who's currently watching it to watch. And I know that is a typical thing about rights moving, right? I hear it all the time in U.S. sports, moving from place to place. It makes the sport harder to watch. But I'm not sure that F1 has got a large enough ingrained audience that will move no matter what.
Correct. I think it's
building that.
I think it's a lot like MLS, where you really want growth. Yeah. And the long term, the growth is going to mean more to you. So yes, I agree. I think the only way this deal happens is if there is a bigger vision behind it.
Yep.
Than what we're seeing now. Because if it's just straight up U.S. broadcast rights and you've already got your subscription service in the U.S., and again, you know, maybe that's a part of this, and maybe Apple would take that over, and that's what they're talking about, and that's why it's more money. Who knows what that is? Then it would make a little more sense. But even then, I would say, why would you do that? You've got your own subscription service. It's going great. Get your visibility on ESPN, and done, right? Be done with it. That's a good deal because it gives you what most sports are trying for now, which is you want to be able to sell and make a lot of money, but you also want visibility so people can find your marquee matchups.
Yep. Moving on, Mark Gurman is reporting that Apple is going to be updating the Vision Pro this year. It will feature an M4 processor to better run Apple Intelligence, and a new head strap will be made available to make the headset more comfortable over extended periods. Additionally, work continues on a bigger refresh in 2027 that would see a much lighter version of the Vision Pro. My bet on this strap, Jason, is that it is the one we used, a version of the one that we used during the demos. Like it's the
Belkin.
The Belkin, yeah. So it's Apple's own version of a solo top with a strap along the top.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Solo Top had the knitted strap. I think this is going to be like the Belkin one, which is cheaper. I think they'll only put that one in the box. Mm-hmm. It felt very much like that product might have been designed by Apple, so I would not be surprised. And it's good, and it's really good. That's what I use now 100% of the time with the Vision Pro. It's really good. And otherwise, this is not a new Vision Pro, right? This is literally, I think we don't want to put let's just swap the M4 in for the M2 and keep making the one that we've got because they're running out of M2s or whatever, right? And then they can reduce, the contents of the box by putting in a better strap because neither strap that's in the box is really that great. And I find that Belkin one to be the perfect balance.
Me too.
And then meanwhile, keep pushing toward the cheaper, lighter product for 27.
As somebody who bought a Vision Pro at full retail price at the beginning of 2024, I endorse not revising it significantly until 2027.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
That would make me feel better. Make me feel better.
Exactly.
Speaking of Mark Gurman and product roadmaps, he has done the thing that he does where he has published a roadmap of stuff that we can expect from Apple over the next year. We've broken this down. Jason rearranged the document this morning, very thankfully for everybody to put this into years. So let's just run through this real quick. So in 2025, we know we're going to be getting the iPhone 17 line, which will be the 17, the 17 Pro, the 17 Air. An M5 chip in the iPad Pro. We'll get new Apple Watches, 11 and Ultra 3, that Vision Pro update, and potentially the cheap MacBook from previous rumors. Mark did not mention this at all, which I found curious.
Yeah, I did too. Also, just a data point, this means that the new chip is going to debut in the iPad again.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is what happened with the M4, right? Is the iPad Pro came out before the MacBook Pro, and it looks like that's going to happen again because you'll notice there's a little foreshadowing for 2026 that what Mark Gurman is saying right now is the MacBook Pros with M5 will not probably we'll get there come out this fall, but instead early next year. And if that's the case, then the M5 iPad Pro, which would be about 18 months after the M4 iPad Pro, would once again be the debut of that chip.
Moving to 26, there will be iPad and iPad Air both getting processor bumps, but that's probably about it. The iPhone 17e is expected to be revised to the A19 in 2026. So Mark says that what he understands, this would now suggest this is an annual revision product, which is fascinating.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, maybe it's. I mean, I think that's why they designed it that way. Is that they can just use it as the spring and bump it to the processor that came out in the fall. Yep.
Yeah. There will be a new display for the Mac, but no details on it. Is it a Studio display? Is it a Studio Display Pro? Is it a Pro Display XDR? I don't know if Mark knows. He's done some reporting in the past about displays, but gave no information here about what this display may actually feature.
Yeah.
That may actually be interesting considering this MacBook Pro stuff. So I'll jump to that real quick. So the MacBook Pro that we would think would be this year's refresh may not actually come until the beginning of next year. No reason given. just a longer cycle, maybe.
Yeah, and he says timing remains fluid, which the way it's written in his story, it reads to me like maybe not next year, maybe this year, but probably next year. Like he's even got conflicting maybe reports, because he says it looks like it's going to be next year tentatively, but he says timing remains fluid, which means, maybe it is an October, November ship, or maybe that's all we got. Timing remains fluid, but I think it's interesting because he slots it in 26, and he's got some intelligence that says it's going to be in 26, but not with a lot of confidence. Fascinating.
And that these MacBook Pros would be the last that look like this, that there would be a refresh. You would say it would be in 26, but now I'm not sure, right? Like, will they do it in the same year? Would they push these to early 27?
They have done that in the same year before, so they could do that again.
I have no idea, right? Because this is weird. So, like, what would they do here?
But it's next. Refresh, it's late 26, early 27, or even mid 27. Who knows? But that's the brand new one that he's been talking about. That's the OLED display, actually new design, and that would be for the M6 probably.
Yeah. This makes me wonder, going back to the display, what the panel is made of. I can't imagine they would ship an OLED, but maybe it's mini LED. I really desperately want the studio display to be the quality of the current MacBook Pro, right?
Right.
So ProMotion, mini LED.
Yeah.
It's sad. Me and Stephen were talking about this the other day. He's like saying that how it makes him sad when he sees his MacBook Pro display open next to his studio display. It's like it feels like they're both showing something black, and it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, see, so my rule is I just never do that. Right now I am looking at my MacBook Pro display, and it is beautiful. And then I'll go home and I'll run it lid closed, and I'll look at my studio display, and it'll be fine. And I'm not going to think about it, and I'm not going to worry about it, because I think the studio display is fine. But yes, they need to do a new display that looks better. It's old technology. It's literally. I mean, it's not exactly the same panel because they changed the color range on it, but essentially Apple's, beyond the Pro Display XDR, which is a real outlier, Apple's like 27-inch 5K panel story is not appreciably different since 2014.
Yeah.
That's...
It started with the iMac Pro, right? And then it moved to the other iMacs.
No, it was just the Retina iMac, the 5K Retina iMac, before the iMac
really?
Pro. Yeah, the first Retina iMac. The first Retina iMac, they didn't have the color gamut, the P3 color that they did in the second one, and then it went to the iMac Pro. But no, that first 5K iMac, which was, I believe, the fall of 14.
Jeez. I mean,
10 years.
Personally,
11 years.
I would have no problem with them keeping the current studio display. Maybe make it a little bit cheaper.
Make it cheaper and keep it around.
Studio display
For sure.
Pro.
For sure.
Because I know it sounds bad when you talk about how old it is and the specs of it, but it's a great display. I use one every day, and I love it. I'd never look at it and I'm like, this is bad.
I bought two.
I just want something more, because I know that they have they have the capability in macOS to support more, right? I want ProMotion on my display. Like I want it to be high quality. So
it's time.
We'll see what we get there. And rounding it out, the MacBook Air will go from the M4 to the M5 in 2026.
Shocker.
And the Home Hub is currently set for the first half of 2026. It'll be 2 years after it was expected to be out.
I feel really bad for that team. I wonder who runs that team. But this is I'm sure that Mike Rockwell is like, yep, been there. Had a product let down by Siri, but the Home Hub is a product that was built around future OS features that the OS group couldn't deliver. And I just, like I said, I think
honestly, Jason, I am worried about this product even then, because is that still depending on App Intense shipping?
I mean,
right?
So
App
Intense stuff is getting there, right? App Intense is not going to be the problem, because I feel like, because Spotlight, the new Spotlight stuff in Tahoe is all based on App Intense as well. Like, I feel like App Intense is coming along, but you also need, you need an assistant. So I think, will they have LLM Siri by the first half of 26? I think they will. I think they feel like they have to. And so, but again, also I would say it feels a little like the HomePod in the sense that it's, we're talking about a product conceived how many years ago now, and basically finalized two years ago or a year ago now, and 2 years when it ships. Like, is that the right product anymore? Is that product worth shipping, or should they look at it again and say, well, no, this is actually wrong for today? I don't know.
Speaking of that, actually, in his Power On newsletter, Mark, when talking about something completely different, drops the tidbit that Apple is seriously considering buying the AI company Mistral. I think this is the French.
Yeah, let's get some French AI in there. French AI inside.
Mistral seems like a candidate in that they're not huge. And they actually have models. Like we're talking about them potentially looking at buying Perplexity, but the issue with that is Perplexity is not an LLM model maker, and that's actually what Apple needs. And so this might get them somewhere. We'll talk a little bit later on in the episode today about AI talent.
Mistral dans la pomme.
Thank you very much. What is that?
Mistral in the apple. La pomme. Because we're going to get the French AI flavor. And I mean, imagine that. Imagine AI. Apple finally comes up with its own AI and it's French. What? Who could have predicted such a thing?
I'm going to Google Translate right now. I'm typing in large language model, and we're going to put that into French, and we'll see what we end up with.
Okay, great.
This is taking longer than I thought to use Google Translate. Grand modèle de langage.
Okay, sure.
They're looking for. They're looking for that. That Eddie Q is walking around Sun Valley saying, Grand modèle, and then someone's going to come. You see the picture of him with his with his Apple iCal all printed out?
Printed out, yeah, that's right. Uncle Eddie needs to get his paper calendar.
Never change.
I get it. He's going from meeting to meeting or whatever. I get it. He's going from meeting to meeting.
Sure, I get it too.
He's got a paper thing with notes on it. All the printing out the big long blocks of time and stuff from what is that about?
Let me tell you why I think it's funny. Like, I also agree. Like, maybe also at Sun Valley, you probably aren't keeping your devices out. Like I'm expecting. Sun Valley is the big like CEOs will get together and talk thing, and I expect. There are a lot of scenarios at Sun Valley where maybe you leave your phone outside the room, like it's one of those kinds of things.
Sure.
So having your calendar on paper. Here's the issue. Don't raise it to the world. Is that right? Don't ever, if you have something even slightly confidential, literally raise it above your head and show it to the paparazzi. Which is what he did, which is one of my favorite photos of Eddie Q of all time now. Actually, never do this unless you're Eddie Q. If you're Eddie Q, you can literally do whatever you want.
I guess that's true.
Never change Eddie Q.
Yeah, this is a lesson of what is it, the Trump administration, where people are like walking with papers and people could read confidential things on the papers. Like, don't put it in a folder, folks. Keep it in a folder.
Especially at something like Sun Valley. Like, especially.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. You probably wouldn't take a call in a public place on speakerphone so that anyone could hear you because you'd be worried that they're going to know what you're talking about because it's your privacy, right? Using the internet without ExpressVPN can be a bit like taking that call. You're never knowing if somebody could eavesdrop. If you don't control the internet that you're a part of, if you're like that you're connected to, how can you be sure of its safety? Your traffic flows through whoever's servers it is that you're connected to. ISPs, mobile network providers, they can know every single website that you visit. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP can't see your browsing history. There are tons of reasons to do this and to choose ExpressVPN. It will hide your IP address, which makes it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. It's easy to use. You just fire up the app and click one button and you're protected. And it works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay private on the go. It actually also works on the Apple TV, so like you could take an Apple TV with you on vacation. You could turn on ExpressVPN and you could watch the shows that you were watching at home while you're away. Fantastic. It's easy to see why ExpressVPN is rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge, and I use it too, especially when I travel, because when you're traveling, you're connecting to Wi-Fi that you don't own, you don't control, you don't know who does. Especially if it's free Wi-Fi, I'm like, I don't know about this. And so I just turn on ExpressVPN, and I'm nice and protected, and I don't have to worry. So, like me, protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/upgrade. That's expressvpn.com/upgrade to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. That is expressvpn.com/upgrade. Our thanks to ExpressVPN for the support of this show and all of Relay. Last Tuesday, Apple announced that Chief Operating Officer Jeff Williams will be retiring from Apple later this year. Sabir Khan will be taking the post of COO this month, and Williams will be wrapping up his other work with the design team, health, and Apple Watch later this year. Khan has been SVP of Operations, effectively Williams is number 2. Khan is already on the leadership page as SVP of Operations, and has been with Apple since 1995, so seems like the exact person who would take this role, right? Like, it fits the bill completely. This is the exact way these things should go, that your boss moves up and leaves, and then you take their place. Like, this is exactly it. So Williams now joins Phil Schiller, Dan Riccio, and Luca Maestri as senior executives at Apple that have left their posts in varying ways in the last few years. Like, people from the Apple leadership page who have stalwarts, been there forever, moved on. What is your initial thought on this before we dig in a little bit deeper? What was your thought when you saw the news?
Well, I thought about the fact that we've gotten, Luca Maestri and Phil Schiller recently too. I thought about the fact that a lot of these guys are in their 60s. They made a lot of money, millions and millions and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars at Apple. And then I was talking to Stephen Hackett about this because he was noting the textual differences between the farewells, right?
Yep.
And that, like, Phil Schiller became an Apple fellow and we know is still, like, in charge of events and the App Store. And Luca Maestri kept, like, very weird collection of things that he's still in charge of, and he's still on the page. He's just not the CFO anymore. He's
kicking around.
He's kicking around. He's doing some like back office stuff.
But not an Apple fellow, though it seems from the face of it that essentially him and Phil are doing the exact same thing, which is just like whatever they want.
Yeah, well, it's like a portfolio, a small portfolio, but reduced from when they were, a big shot.
Yeah.
Jeff Williams' announcement is he's retiring, and he's handing over COO job right now to Sabir Khan. And by the end of the year, he'll be handing over his design reports to Tim. And then he's presumably done. And so that's interesting because this feels like a retirement. The comment I made to Stephen was, I think a lot of these executives are just real type A workaholics. And they have probably neglected everything in their lives outside of Apple for years.
Yeah.
And there's 2 ways to go. One way is, why would I stop?
Yep.
And the other is, I'm in my 60s. I have more money than I know what to do with, and have not been able to spend as much time with my family as I would like, and live my life as I would like. And so I am going to step off the treadmill and the grind of working at Apple, and it's got to be a huge grind if you're a senior executive at Apple. It's got to be a huge part of your life, and
maybe the grind has only become more and more intense.
Exactly.
Right? So,
and right now it's really intense. Yeah. And like, I don't need this. I am too old for this stuff, as the saying isn't. And so that is reading between the lines of the Jeff Williams announcement. I'm just, on a human scale, I'm struck with the fact that maybe Jeff Williams is like seeing the world clearly, because it actually says, like, I want to spend time with my kids and my grandkids. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're in your 60s and you've got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and you don't need to do this anymore. You should go have a great, maybe, 20, 25 years of hopefully health to spend with your family. I think maybe you should do that. And I think the question that most of us as human beings should ask is, why aren't the rest of them doing that? Because at some point, not only should they probably do that, but I'll just say, for a company that is trying to always be kind of cool and reach the next generation of technology users, having a bunch of I'm sorry, no matter how cool you are, if you're a decision maker in your 60s, you have lost touch with a lot because you're in your 60s.
If you've just been doing it for so long. Like even if you're in your in your 40s, but somehow you've been doing it for 20 years, that maybe there's a fresh perspective available to you.
Right, you were formed a lot of your perspectives 30 years ago, and that is a change. And I'm not saying, look, as somebody in their mid 50s, I'm not saying that people who are older do not have wisdom and a lot of intelligence of processing of history and understanding how it works. That's all true, but I will say that if your company is like largely made up of decision makers at that point in their careers, you could potentially be missing signals of things. And I don't know if LLMs is an example of that, but like missing signals of how the world has changed that you're not necessarily getting because the echo chamber at the top is full of people who are multiple generations removed from that. And so that it's as a company, you want to have a healthy mix. And we have had an era where the Steve Jobs lieutenants have mostly been doing this. So I think, on a human scale, I wonder why they're still there. Other than that, this is all they've got, right? Which is, I mean, I think that personally is kind of sad. That it's like, is this all you got? I mean, you.
Yeah, but it's a pretty great thing to have. I mean, maybe I'm just closer to that type of person.
If you found the balance, and I guess that's the thing is, if you found a balance that works for you, like Phil Schiller clearly doesn't need to do this anymore. My guess is that Phil Schiller, okay, I apologize for the pop psychology here because I don't know these guys and I don't know what they think. But talking about Phil, who I've been interviewing on and off for ages and have talked to a bunch over the years, mostly early on and not so much lately. But like, he strikes me as maybe being the kind of person who he's got more varied interests than you might think. He's a donor to his alma mater and has buildings named after him. He's on boards. There's other things he's doing. I think him stepping away from the worldwide VP of comms role and just doing the App Store and events is like, I just want to do those because I love them. And it dramatically reduced his workload. And I think the counter argument to these guys retiring is you hear those stories of the people who like retire and then they just die because the thing they were doing at their work was the thing that motivated them in life. Yep. And that playing golf and spending time with their grandkids does not fulfill them. And if that's the case, Apple allowing them to stick around and be fulfilled in a lesser role is great. And if you're Jeff Williams and you're like, no, I don't need that. I'm also we've seen people leave and then come back where they're like, Bob Mansfield was like, I could come back. Right.
Please.
John Rubinstein was like, yeah, I could go to another company and build hardware for a little while. Like it does happen that way too. So I think it's fascinating, but on an Apple scale, I would say, and Mark Gurman wrote about this a bit on Sunday, I think you do want to start the process of saying, what is the next generation leadership team at Apple look like? Because regardless of their desires, you have so many people in their like late 50s and early 60s who, as good as they might be, they can't stick around forever. They really can't. And you need to start moving them along. I actually really love the fact that Apple lets some of their senior executives hang around because they have so much wisdom. Like Phil Schiller has seen it all, right? So keeping him around is great. Like Apple would be a lesser company if Phil Schiller had said later and gone off, to drive a sports car and sit on the beach, right? Like this is way better, but you can't have it be 2030 and it's still a bunch of people in their late 60s, early 70s. And that's your entire team, because the problem is, with all the will in the world, you can't do that job forever. You just can't. We're all aging humans, and you do need, part of your job is to bring the next generation along. And I'll point out, Sabi Khan has been there forever and is not that much younger than Jeff Williams, right? Like this is an ongoing challenge that Apple has, that they had a great team that they assembled a long time ago. Yeah.
Like, if you really want people with a lot of experience, guess what? They get older, right? Like, that's just kind of how it works.
Yeah.
Like, a couple things I want to say. I am one of those people, right? Like a Phil Schillery type. And, like, I don't think I could ever stop working. I think if I stopped working, I would freeze. Like, I just...
Yeah.
I can't imagine I would ever fully retire. It's the kind of person I am. If I enjoy my work, I like to do it. Like, and I think there are a lot of people who, even in that scenario, would be like, "Oh, I would like to go retire on a beach somewhere." I would lose my mind. Like, this is not how I work. The other thing I wanted to mention, it's uncouth, but no one's really said it, so I just want to say it.
Okay, like, be uncouth, Mike.
Did he get told he wasn't going to be the CEO?
Okay, so I have two thoughts about this. One is, yes, it's possible, but I don't think that's it.
I'm not saying that is it, but it's a possibility.
It is.
Like, I just don't really think I'm seeing many people explore very much.
I would view this from the other direction, which is, if I'm Jeff Williams and I know I am the in case of emergency break glass guy.
It's like, no thanks.
if I know I'm that guy, in case of glass, by the way, we had liquid glass. Oh no, glass. We were at the glass case now. So if I'm the emergency CEO, if something happens to Tim, and you think about like, okay, then I'm taking over as CEO and I have to do that for a certain amount of time. I wonder if Jeff Williams came to the point where he was like, you know what? I am no longer willing to be that guy because I'm not going to stick around for 5 years and be the CEO. I would rather retire. There's a scenario here.
You can't be in the succession plan and be like, yeah, but I'm only going to last for like a year. It's like, no, that's not
I'm
how
only
this
going to be here
works.
for 3. Exactly. So it's possible that Jeff Williams actually said, you know what? I can't be part of the succession plan anymore. I've reached the point where I'm getting toward the end of my tenure. And maybe this is all wrapped up together where he's like, look, here's the deal. I can't be in the succession plan anymore. So let's set some dates. I'll start handing things off and I'll retire. Because, you know, and it's possible that it was the other way where it was like, at this point, Jeff, we don't want you to be that guy. But it's possible. I kind of have a hard time seeing that because he is the perfect like emergency swap, hot swap for Tim. I think he really is. But he's also about the same age as Tim. This is the problem. So I think some version of that may have been part of this, which is like essentially like if you're him and you're starting to think about retirement, you don't want to be the hot swap for Tim because you don't want to be like, because they're going to want you to stay, right? You're going to need to stabilize things and find somebody to be the successor. And if you don't want to be there for more than a few years, I mean, the last thing, if I was thinking I'm about ready to retire and I got my money from all that Apple stock and I'm going to spend time with my grandkids, and then Tim Cook gets hit by a bus and they're like, okay, 5 more years of the grind of being CEO of Apple during trying times. And you're like, nope, not.
Because I wouldn't be surprised too, like on that if you agree to be in the succession plan, in that scenario, there is surely a minimum time that you have to commit to.
Yeah, and you need to communicate it and be a responsible person and say, I'm no longer willing to commit to being a bridge CEO for 5 years or whatever. It's like I'm out the door, so let's end this. And I think whether that was him initiated or it was just practical or whatever it was, I think it's more likely that that's the case. It is possible that they're like, all right, we're updating the succession plan now. But I mean, the way Gurman describes it, and he clearly, because of his various org charts and things that he's done over the years, he clearly has some view into what's going on here. It's not like a crystal clear view, but he has some view into it. He said, now the in case of emergency break glass is a group.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's going to be a bunch of people. It's going to be Jaws, and it's going to be Deirdre.
Yep. And it would now be Sabir too.
Yeah, and they would be like a management team. As somebody who's had their CEO fired and had no replacement, that's what we had to do. Is we had a little management team, and they kind of like kept it going. And was there a point person? Of course, there's going to be somebody who talks to the board, but you might not even have an interim CEO. You might have like an interim management team that would do that in the meantime. And that's just in case. Now, the next question is, okay, what's the succession plan long-term now? And I think we don't have a lot of vision into this other than the fact that Mark Gurman keeps saying that John Turnus is thought of as being the best candidate here.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, ultimately the board decides that. But what I would say is I feel like the board is we talked about this last week a little bit. I feel like the board is they're an independent board, but they're not really. They get it. They want to do what Tim wants to do. They're in synergy. They're not in opposition to each other. I have a hard time imagining that unless it's unwilling because of health or whatever, I feel like it's Tim becomes executive chairman of the board, and the board names a replacement. And it's going to be part of the plan, and it's not going to be like, oh, the board doesn't like John Turnus. That's not how it's going to work.
No. And that essentially, whoever Tim says, I recommend such and such person, I recommend John Turnus to become my replacement, the board would go, yes.
They're not going to say, no, we're going to hire somebody from, over there. We're going to hire a vice president from Microsoft instead. Unless things dramatically change in the next few years, that's not going to happen.
So going back to the impact of Williams' departure, there are the teams that he is going to continue to manage, which as of right now, we do not have that much visibility into what's going to happen, right? We know what's happening to the COO role because that's happening basically imminently.
And the design
it's basically
team.
happened already.
Yeah.
But I have a question about the design team though.
But it's in the press release. The rest of it is not in the press release.
It says the design team will report to Tim Cook directly. But what does that mean? We don't know, right? No. So Mark Gurman points out that currently it would be considered to be Alan Dye and Molly Anderson reporting directly to Tim, essentially in the post Ive. No, actually in the Johnny Ive structure of there being the chief design officer, and then we have head of hardware, head of software reporting to Johnny, reporting to Tim. You now remove Johnny from that part because what Gurman says is that currently it is not like this, where it's two people reporting into Williams. There are a bunch of people that report into Williams. They do not. They undid that work of we have head of. Even though they still exist, but it was it became a point where everything flowed into those two and then up.
So that's untenable, obviously.
Yeah.
They need some design leadership. They know there may be reasons why having two design leaders doesn't make sense because there are parts of it that Alan Dye shouldn't be in charge of for whatever reason. There's also a personality issue, right? If you value somebody, but by moving them under somebody else, they're going to feel like they got a demotion and you want to keep them. Maybe you say, Alan Dye reports to Tim, but functionally there's a dotted line to Craig, for example, right?
Yep.
And Molly Anderson reports to Tim, but there's a dotted line to John Turnus, right? And you do that for a while. It's hard to pick this apart from the outside because it has to do with personalities and how it's structured functionally. But this has been an issue where they do not have a design leader. I would argue that they don't necessarily need a single design leader because you could argue that the merging of all the design under Johnny Ive was actually kind of an act of desperation, and that they don't need to do it that way necessarily. But what about the rest? What about the rest of stuff that he's doing?
Just real quick, I will just say, I do think it's wild that nobody from design is considered in a leadership role. That should change for Apple specifically. I'm not saying it could be one person; it could be both of them. But the fact that there's nobody in hardware or software design on the leadership page, the word design does not exist on the leadership page, makes no sense to me.
I agree.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Considering even before Johnny became chief design officer, he was always on this page. Always. As a SVP or whatever his role was. He was always on this page.
Yep.
And Apple is a design company, essentially at their core, and it's very strange that they don't have this. This would be the perfect time to do this, whether they bring someone else in who becomes the interface to Tim, or they promote people to or whatever. I think they should absolutely do this. This is the right time to do this. But then we have watch and health.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's likely that they split them. I guess
what Gurman said is watch is already essentially under John Turnus.
Yep.
And they said health will probably go to I think they said like to Eddie for health for Fitness Plus, and like you could see where they're going to go. And I mean, this is one of those interesting challenges where you have these areas that are squired by particular executives because they're like up and coming, new, weird, and an executive is like, I'll take it. And that's what Jeff Williams did. And now they've got to give those to other people. But they're also more mature now. So like if Fitness Plus doesn't already belong to Eddie, of course it should belong to Eddie. And if Apple Watch doesn't already belong to John Turnus, of course it should belong to John Turnus. So, okay. Right? Like they'll scatter it out. I have a hard time with, did he say that the health team that is led by that doctor who we always see, that she's going to report to Eddie? Is that true? Because like, that's an odd couple waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Eddie and the doctor.
Someone's got to report to someone, right?
That's how it has to be.
Where are they going to go?
Unless she's reporting to Tim.
But this is what I find strange, right? Like, if it was working so well with Jeff, like, why are we like?
They don't want to load
Stone splitting this up.
They don't want to load Well, two reasons. They don't want to load Sebi Khan up with this stuff. It's the same reason that they didn't load the new CFO up with all of Luca's responsibilities. And the other thing is just functionally, they weren't roles of the COO. They were roles that Jeff Williams took on in addition to his COO role because, like I said, it was an up-and-coming thing. Somebody needed to shepherd it along, and Jeff was like, I'm interested in that, or they saddled him with it, depending on how you want to read it. You're stuck with a watch, Jeff. All right, fine. Whatever it is, probably not that, but you never know. So I think that's what's going on. Is it's actually a logical understanding that a brand new CFO, COO doesn't need to be loaded down with everything. And by doing these slow transitions, you get to let the existing person help the new person with their job when necessary, have the institutional knowledge. Also then on their way out the door, if they're going out the door, get the rest of it handed off in ways that make sense to other places. Because again, I think the stuff that wasn't COO job that Jeff Williams was doing, the right way to think of it is those were also jobs Jeff Williams did, not that those were the jobs of the COO.
Dr. Sumbul Desai.
Yeah. Well, if she reports to Eddie, that will be a sitcom waiting to happen.
She essentially runs the health. You see it, right? Like it's easy to see who runs the teams, just who presents, right? Yeah. And so that you see in the keynotes, especially in the iPhone keynote and WWDC to an extent too, you see the management structure. Like it's on display, right? Tim hands to Jeff hands to Dr. Desai, right? Like it's happening in front of your eyes, right? Like it's how it goes. But what, we're going to go to Eddie now? Eddie hands over to John Turnus. Turnus hands over to Federighi. Federighi goes back to Tim. We get Alan Dye pops out of a bush. Like, what's going on over there? Like, I know that this has been a thing forever, right? Like the way that Apple kind of functions and structures its management teams. I think they need a bit of help because it seems like at the moment, just everything goes to either John or Federighi.
This is probably part of what Gurman is saying, which is they need a reset. They need to structure this in a way that makes more sense, because I do get the sense that over the years they're rolling, they're making lots of money, nobody's going to question it. And you have, look, I've been there, you may have seen this too. You have an org chart, but then you know who in the org chart is great at X. Yep. And honestly, good companies don't give X to somebody who is bad at it if there's somebody else in the organization who's good at it. A good company is like, I'm going to have you do this because you're really good at it. And maybe the other person is like, well, shouldn't that be mine? It's like, you got to be like, no, this is the right person to do that. You keep doing what you're good at, and we're not going to give this to you. And that can rub people the wrong way. But I think it's a healthy thing to identify the people who are the right people to do the job. And but the more you do that, the more weird and broken your org chart gets, right? Where you've got dotted lines and things that are like, it's over here, but it's over there. And it's like, why does Phil Schiller's in charge of the App Store, for example? And the answer is because Eddie kind of didn't care about the App Store and developer relations, and it was a mess. And they're like, and Phil was like, okay, I'll fix it. And he went in there. Like, there was no logical reason for him to do it. It was just like, Phil should probably do it. And now that he's not the SVP of comms, he's still doing that job because he's cares about it and he's good at it. So the challenge is that organizational rot happens, and it's look, rot is probably too pejorative. That organizational complexity happens for good reasons, but it does mean that especially as people leave, you look, it's like a design. It's like what I said about any design. Designs start out really sensible and logical, and then over the course of years, you keep patching them. And then you look at it 10 years on and you're like, what are we even doing here? And you have to throw it away. And that, I think, is where they're headed with their org chart is. You kind of got to throw it away and figure out a new way to go that makes sense, because you got new people coming in doing different jobs with different skill sets. And that goes right up to the top. Like, ultimately, if somebody like John Turnus, who is more product from a product background instead of an ops background, takes over as CEO, like, I read somebody said, it might have been Gurman, like, there's a concern of like, oh, but if he's CEO, then he's going to have to rely on somebody else for all the ops stuff. It's like, well, of course, Tim Cook has to rely on people for the product stuff because it's not his thing. But what that means is the CEO defines the CEO job in a way, and that changes the roles of everybody else. So if you're going to be moving to a CEO transition and you've got a bunch of other new people coming in, it's a good time for a little bit of a reset, because new CEO might need much more specific work from the COO that Tim, for example, doesn't need, because Tim kind of gets it. And then the product group becomes a little bit different if it's a more product oriented CEO. We'll see. But yeah, it does feel like that.
I continue to raise so many questions about the design part. Tim didn't want to do that, right? He did not want to oversee design. So it got moved
to
around.
Jeff. Yeah.
Well, it was Johnny, right? And
well, that wasn't because Tim didn't want to do it. That was because they needed to have Johnny flying the flag.
But what I mean is, it was not his thing. It was never his thing. Clearly, right? Like they elevated Johnny, I think, to the point where it's like, well, now we're just equals in this room, right? Because like, I don't want to oversee you. And then Jeff oversaw the design team. So like, now it's going back to Tim, but like, I don't think. That's why I'm not. That's why I
it's a hot potato. Tim doesn't want
as to whether it is as simple as it appears on paper.
And I would say, I would say it may be happening because of personalities. If Alan Dye says, I'm not reporting to Tim to Craig Federighi, I want to report to Tim, and they want to keep Alan Dye, that's when you're like, okay, you report to Tim, but there's a dotted line to Craig, and you got to talk to Craig. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. But it's like, some people are like that. I'm not saying he's like that. I don't know him, but like, some people are like that, where it's like, I never really understood this, but like, I care more about the appearance than about the actuality. It's like, I want to be seen as reporting to Tim. It gives me, a lot of, reputation that I gain. And yeah, I know day to day I'm working for Craig, but I report to Tim. And like, some people, that stuff matters. It never mattered to me, but I learned as a manager that for some people, the optics and a lot of their self-worth, maybe, or how they cared about how others viewed them, they would do stuff like that. So some of that may be going on, but I agree with you. Like, in the long run, if you don't have a company design chief, which I don't think they've got one. Like Johnny Ive, you could have argued, probably shouldn't have been in charge of all of it, but I think they certainly don't have anybody like that now. Then what you really ultimately need to do is come up with some design leadership and have them report to more relevant parts, or you name a couple of them SVPs and have them report to Tim. That's the other way you could go. But really, like, something needs to happen there. And it's again, just to bring this all back around, it smells to me like this is a structure that has organically evolved based on the people involved. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense in some cases. But then once you pull people out, you end up asking the question like, well, now what? Because now the structure doesn't make sense at all. And they seem to be going through some of that right now.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Summer is finally here. More sun, more light, more time to do all of the things that make summer so special. But here's what you don't want to be doing: spending hours cooking inside. I will say for me, actually, especially, like, I don't want to have the oven on right now. It's too hot. The house is too hot. And that's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor's meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle from summer and beyond. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. Choose from options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown with nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. Enjoy more this summer and get Factor if you want all the flavor and none of the fuss. Is that right, Jason? Do you get all the flavor and none of the fuss with Factor?
It's true. The taste of it is remarkable. I have, having done it for a little while now, I have investigated the secrets of what they're doing, and I'm not going to reveal them, but I can say that they make microwaved proteins that don't taste like they've been microwaved, and they've got a system, but in the end it tastes great. It does not taste like something that you heated up for a couple of minutes, and it's very good, to the point where Lauren steals them and takes them to work with her. And we get them for my mom because we want my mom to have better nutrition than she was able to get, because she doesn't do a lot of cooking for herself. So if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
Get started today at factormeals.com/upgrade50off and use the code upgrade50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That is code upgrade50off at factormeals.com/upgrade50off to get 50% off plus free shipping. One last time, factormeals.com/upgrade50off. The link is in the show notes too. Our thanks to Factor for their support of this show and all of Relay. So there were more executive changes, Apple, that came out this week. Meta, in its hiring spree that is going on right now, there's a lot of this going on in the AI world at the moment, but Meta is doing it to staff up, I think, with their superintelligence division. They have hired Ruoming Pang away from Apple. Pang was in charge of developing Apple's foundation models for Apple Intelligence and has apparently been offered a compensation package worth more than $200 million to go to Meta. According to Mark Gurman, Pang ran a team of 100 people that have been working on Apple Intelligence models that power the features that are currently working on devices, and was also working on a new version of Siri, the one that Apple is currently unsure as to what direction they will go with. Will they use that, or will they get another model from somewhere else? I wonder if Pang saw the writing on the wall, or was just annoyed, or wanted $200 million.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's talking about the $200 million, but it's over time and it's in stock, and you got to stay in Meta and it's got to be successful and all that. But still, it's a lot of money.
Sure, but if you only get 10% of $200 million, you're fine as well. You know.
So a couple things here. Gurman reports that Pang was frustrated by Apple and some of the decisions they made, including their decisions about privacy, which I think is very funny. Right? Maybe Meta's a better fit, because they don't care about privacy.
Yeah.
I think Apple Apple didn't counter here. And that part of me thinks Apple doesn't believe, because Apple's got the money, but on one hand, Apple may be like, that is not how we pay people, because Apple is sometimes very cheap with who they pay and how they pay them. Or maybe Apple thought, that they didn't actually like this guy, right? You can't say. I mean, nobody's going to say, but sometimes you let people leave because it's not working out. Now, you could read it either way.
And there is some evidence that would suggest that, right?
Well, yeah. The way Gurman puts it, and I almost want to say spins it, because I wonder if this is stuff that's coming from people who are on Pang's side here. Is it's more like a story that that him and his poor team were kind of not really treated well by Apple and didn't let them do all the wonderful things they were going to do, and so it makes sense that he would leave, and he'll probably take people on his team with him. Okay, maybe, but we also know what Apple has done with their models, and it's not a great story. And so making it that it's a policy decision or it's about Apple's commitment to privacy, like that may be true, or it may be a story you tell as you are exiting to go take a big payday somewhere else. And my point is just, if the team was not perceived as doing a good job and he was not perceived as being worth spending an enormous amount of money to keep, and beyond what you'd pay him, because then you need to pay everybody else more too, probably, right? It would raise the compensation for everybody. Letting them walk could mean you have a dysfunctional AI organization that doesn't value the people who are building the next generation of models. Or it could mean that you're not particularly impressed with your AI group that is generating models, right? Like, it could mean either of those things. I don't know.
I wonder as well, like, saying about the team, was this the team that was denied graphics cards? Maybe so. I mean, I think it's perfectly understandable that a team focused on this stuff might feel not made important at Apple. Obviously, we know the history that Apple kind of like poo-pooed a lot of, especially LLMs early on. And then they were scrambling to catch up. And so maybe they didn't feel valued at Apple. Maybe Apple's culture is a bad fit for this sort of approach. And I mean, I just don't know. I more and more I think about it, I think that that Apple's approach to AI research is different than the people who are like on the super cutting edge of wanting to build LLMs. Because I feel like Apple focusing a little more on on-device models and making those as good as possible, and then going out to those cloud models is probably, it's a way forward. Also, if Apple's thinking that they're just going to buy an AI company, then they've sort of written off, like, we're going to spend money on Mistral or something, and so we don't, this group is going to just kind of fade away or get integrated, then you would also let them leave. So, I mean, something is going on here for sure. But I want to point out, because it's so easy to portray this as being a loss for Apple, and it might be. It might be. Although I would say if he feels unappreciated and not listened to, then they're not using him anyway. Also that they let him go says something, because if he's really incredibly vital, they could have matched them, or maybe he's so frustrated that they couldn't have matched him. I don't know. I just don't know. But it could be it could be either one. What the scenario is, I think this is bad for Apple. Like, if this person was really good, it's bad that you've lost the talent. If they weren't really good, why were they leading the team? Yeah. Right. So, like, I don't see a scenario really where this can be spun as a good thing.
Well, no, I would say if they weren't really good, and this goes all the way up to John G and Andrea, you hire them because you thought they were good, and then you look at what they produced and you think, we're not impressed. And that might be fair or unfair, but that happens all the time. This person's in a position of people in position of leadership aren't always good. You find out that they're not good, and then maybe you get rid of them. Apples are often very bad at that, or maybe you just let them leave. I've definitely had situations where I've had employees that were like, okay, but not that great, and they're like, oh, I got another job offer, and it's good luck to you, good luck, and you don't, like, we're not going to try to keep you. You should go somewhere else. So but I agree. I think that either way, it shows some dysfunction. A level of dysfunction at Apple. And if Apple is trying to hold on to talent to build new models that are better, and this was talent that they wanted to hold on to, it's a bad sign, because he'll take people with him. He'll take people with him, and they'll lose those people.
Especially Meta's trying to build a new team. And I do imagine too that, like, whoever hired this person at Meta is not stupid. Like there's a reason that you would pay this amount of money for this person. That would just be my assumption. Not because they were leading Apple, but like for another reason, like that they are a mind.
And then other people are going to come along with. Although, boy, that line about frustrated by Apple's commitment to privacy, I think is fascinating. Where it's like, that's a good question. Like, are you going to be able to get the best AI researchers if you've got Apple's commitment to privacy? At the same time, does Apple want models that are built by people who don't care about privacy? I'm not sure they do, but it's tough. It's tough. This is why Jeff Williams is polishing up his golf clubs.
Let's finish up with some Ask Upgrade questions today. Craig writes in and says, Mike, I know that you went with the standard Pro phone instead of the Pro Max this year. A lot of it was baby related, but I'm curious how it's worked out for you. Do you miss the larger phone while not holding the baby? Do you regret not going Pro Max? No, I absolutely made the right decision moving to the Pro. I think at the exact right time as the Pro got a little bit bigger, so I didn't lose as much. The only thing I will say is that I noticed the battery life more now than I did when I was using the Pro Max. I cannot get through a day of usual use without charging at some point. So that is the only thing that I've noticed, but it's very achievable for me in my life to be able to get the charge that I need at some point during the day. But I am very, very happy with the Pro phone, and I would not want to go to a larger screen again. But with question mark of don't know how big the iPhone Air is going to be, or I don't know if that's the phone I'm going to want. But I can't imagine wanting to go back to the biggest phone again.
All right.
Tom writes in and says, I've been wearing an Apple Watch since day one, but I am increasingly frustrated by the lack of watch face options. I recently enabled live activities on my watch and found that the swipe up / live activity screen, this is the Smart Stack is what Tom's referring to, is a great layout for me, but it's one you cannot replicate of any watch face. Anyway, are they ever going to fix the watch face situation on watchOS at Apple?
I don't know. Are they? I don't know. I don't know. I thought we would be further along 10 years in, honestly. Yeah. I like the Smart Stack. I do. I really do like it. Too. And I have watch faces
I liked
that I
the
like
Siri
too.
watch face when that came out, right? Like that's kind of what this
Which
is.
Which was basically what the Smart Stack is, yeah.
My feeling on it is I'm not confident that Apple will make the decisions that they should be making with watch faces. Like, it feels like they are unwilling to put in the big efforts that are needed to make watch faces better and more adaptable. I mean, we go back to what you were complaining about when the new watches came out, right? That like we have these always-on displays that can show a second hand moving consistently, but they didn't update any of the previous watch faces to do that. I don't know if they've done this in watchOS 26. I'm assuming that they haven't. If anybody knows that is the case, please let me know, but I doubt it.
The watchOS 26 ticks every second.
On all of them?
That's my understanding, yes.
So they did fix it?
Yeah, that's my
Why
understanding.
have you not been shouting about this?
Because I have not installed the beta on my watch. It's the one place where I don't have a beta, and I'm not going to do it until I see it for my own
Well, here
self.
you go.
But that's
Breaking
what I've heard.
news. They fixed Jason's problem. So there you go. I'm pleased that they did that. They are willing
took,
to do that. Fantastic.
It just took an entire year for them to update their
But they did it.
I think
they show me a level of willingness, which I'm happy
Smart Stack, if you've got you can set it so that when a live activity is active, your Smart Stack comes up instead of the watch face. And that feels to me like almost what Tom is saying here, which is you almost want to get in a scenario where you should just say, don't even bother showing me a watch face, just show me the Smart Stack, because there's a clock in the Smart Stack, right?
Yep.
Wouldn't surprise me if that's an option at some point, but you can get it some of the time at least. I like having a nice watch face, and I scroll for the Smart Stack all the time now. Mm-hmm. It's nice.
Me too.
I like it.
I pretty much only use that in my Apple Watch. I very seldom would go to the apps screen because I also have like one widget, which is like the 3 apps that I use the most, right? So if I want to get to messages, I just like scroll all the way down and I can open messages. I think, though, in general, everybody should just use the Photos face. If you've not used the Photos face that they introduced last year, you should try it. If you've used the Photos face in the past and was like, I don't want that, trust me that it's so much better. Like the system that they have of using the photo shuffle mechanic to load images on, long-term follow-up, my baby now shows up very frequently on all my devices, which I'm very happy about. So that it took like 3 months, but she now is very present on my watch faces. Everybody should use the photos face. You should just try it if you haven't. Like just let the system do its thing. It makes the Apple Watch look really beautiful, and you can get 2 complications there, which for me is more than enough. Like for just like looking at my watch, most of the time I even want to know what is the time, the date, and for me the weather, and I get all of that. So, but yeah, I cannot believe they haven't turned this over to developers. They should turn this over to developers because even if Apple puts some level of investment in it, it's not enough. But I don't think they're going to do it in the same way that I don't imagine that they would ever turn over lock screen design to third parties, right? That's what Apple thinks the watch face is. They want to control that experience. I don't imagine them doing it at this point, but I still would like them to.
Would be nice.
And Camille says, I finally started watching Taskmaster with the latest series 19, and it's been brilliant so far. Now I want to go back and watch the rest of the show. Would you recommend starting all the way back with series 1, or should I go through the show backwards?
You should start with the beginning. And not to be John Syracuse on you, but like the show is the show, but the show dynamic evolves, and I think it's fun to watch it as it evolves. Also, by doing it that way, there are sometimes references to previous things. Obviously, they do every 5 seasons. They do the Champion of Champions, where the 5 champions of the previous 5 seasons then battle against each other to see who is the champion of champions.
Backwards, you would spoil every 5 seasons for yourself because you'd know who won them.
Exactly.
Like,
so I think you could watch them in any order, but if they're all there, you should just start from the beginning because the show is the show. Like the show doesn't change a lot. You'll get to see Greg and Alex's relationship kind of change over time as they figure out sort of like the right way to do it. But I think you should just go back from the beginning. They're all great. We rewatched a bunch of them recently. They're all great. You should totally do that. And then also I will say, Taskmaster New Zealand is really good. And if you get through all the UK Taskmasters, check out Taskmaster New Zealand. The Australian one is not bad. But the New Zealand one is really good, and the assistant on New Zealand is, I would say, just as good as Alex. So
that's good.
Yeah. It's really good.
I love the I think like the first 10 seasons especially are just incredible. It lost me a little bit in the last few seasons, but we just started watching season 19 because I've only heard incredible things, and it is incredible.
It's
3 episodes in, and it's like this is an all-timer.
It's a great season.
There were some of the more recent seasons, for whatever reason, they just haven't done it for me.
Season 16 has Sam Campbell in it, one of my all-time favorite contestants. It's such a great season.
Did I watch that one?
And season 18 has Andy Zaltzman, who is also hilarious and weird.
I watched season 16. I loved season 16. But I haven't watched all of them. But I watched this one. Sam Campbell was absolutely incredible. One of my favorite contestants of all time, though, was Noel Fielding, because his athleticism was surprising.
Surprising, yes, yeah, exactly.
There's some. You should go back and watch it all. It's very available no matter where you are in the world, right? Like if you're in the UK, you can watch it all on 4OD. Which is an ad-supported free streaming service.
In the US, you can watch it on YouTube, and anywhere in the world you can watch, I think it's called Taskmaster Supermax Plus. They put all the names in it where you can give them some money and watch the show. So
it's a very, very fun, very, very fun show.
I love it.
We were talking about it last night. We were watching an episode. I was just like, this show is so cheap to produce. They really lucked out. Like they found an incredible format that is very repeatable. They obviously own that property, right? And like they invested in buying that little house somewhere, God knows where.
It's in Chiswick. It's by a golf course, and they didn't buy it, and that means that this came up when they were on Seth Meyers, because Seth Meyers is a fan, and they said no, they don't own it. And once Taskmaster became a hit, the rent went up, and they're spending a huge amount of money to rent that place because they know that they can't let it go.
That's not
that's
smart. But I guess they didn't know it was going to be a success,
they didn't know,
right?
And now they can't let it go. And if you're wondering where it is, by the way, if you go to Google Maps and search for Taskmaster House, you will find it. It's literally in there.
They need to buy it. Like, I know it's not necessarily an easy thing, but like, it's possible enough.
Maybe they have offered now, or maybe they are buying it, or something like that. But it's apparently been a thing of contention where they feel like they're kind of trapped and they have to keep using it. But it is such a great location, and they make the most of it. And yeah, you should go by there sometime.
They could do the pure Hollywood thing and hire a soundstage and build a set that looks just like it.
I have had the thought where it's like you could really kind of go out into the countryside somewhere and just build the Taskmaster Cottage again. Yeah. That would also be expensive, but maybe you do it. Anyway, it's a great show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Honestly, it's pure entertainment. I just watched Amazon tried to replicate it with their LOL Last One Laughing.
Yeah.
They use that format, but they use it's literally a bunch of Taskmaster contestants, and that show was fine. It was kind of funny, and many of those UK panel shows are fine and kind of funny, but not like Taskmaster.
They're Taskmaster contestants in that they are British comedians.
Well, they are, and
eventually every British comedian becomes a Taskmaster.
It's true. Although we got Jason Mantzoukas this time, which was kind of fun. But no, like literally 8 or 9 of the 10 contestants in that show are Taskmaster contestants. So they were. But you're right. This is when we were doing Relay 10 and the Hackney Empire Theatre, and we looked at what else was playing at the Hackney Empire Theatre, and it was British comedians, but it was also pretty much just Taskmaster contestants, because again, that Venn diagram, it's there's a lot of overlap there. So anyway,
my wife watched that Last One Laughing. I wasn't really that interested in it because I really don't like Jimmy Carr. Like, he's just not.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like him either. But the some
Bob
of those
contestants. It was on at home.
Mortimer.
Adina was watching it while she was pregnant, I think.
Bob Mortimer
I can't remember.
Is a genius.
But it was, it's one of those shows I'd see it and I'd be like, oh, this is actually pretty funny, right? Like, I would see parts and be like, this is pretty good.
It is.
So I think we're watching. Adina was watching this when the baby was here, and her thing about it though, which I completely agreed with, is why does it look like this? Like, the production design was wrong.
It's because
it looked like Love Is Blind. Is what it looked like.
It's because it's a Japanese game show format that they've just replicated everywhere else, and I think they just make it look like that.
The visual, the furniture design.
I know. I don't know. Maybe they
totally wrong.
Maybe they used a set from some other show, and
it just didn't look right. Like, and no matter what the reason is, they I think visually they messed up with the way that show looked. It just didn't look right. I didn't know it was Japanese, but that's not surprising to me now that you've mentioned that, because you've got the like people watching the thing, talking about the thing.
Yeah. And everybody, it's been replicated in almost every country that Amazon wants to replicate it in, except the U.S. Right. They don't do it there. I don't know why. Nobody knows.
If you would like to send in a question for us to answer on the show, very easy to do. Go to upgradefeedback.com. That's where you can also send in your follow-up as well. Thank you to our members who support us every week of Upgrade Plus. Go to getupgradeplus.com and you can sign up and get longer ad-free shows every week. If you'd like to watch us, you can find us on YouTube. We're Upgrade Podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, that is Fitbod, Factor, and ExpressVPN for their support of this week's episode. But the biggest thanks go to you for listening. We'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Goodbye, Mike Hurley.